But we do. So now what's happening with black people are following white people, and we're thinking we needed economics, we need all of the things that we have outgrown. We have gone through that stage. We don't need that anymore. Now, the Brotherhood is saying it's time for you to take back your planet and be the rightful rulers. That's the same thing when you look at the gods in Egypt and what they used to do. Or either look at the Greek gods. Real key. Because see, what you don't realize, the Greek gods come from Egypt. And when you look at what Zeus and Apollo and all them used to do with those particular stories, or with Isis and Osiris, that's the stuff that we do. Because the gods is nothing to talk about a race of people who fell. You see, from the universal prime creator. So now if the Bible says, is it not written in your law that ye are gods, a God is not supposed to live like the white boy. We're supposed to live better than that. You see what I'm saying? So in actuality, so this is what's going on at this particular time. You see, we have outgrown this. There's another stage that we're trying to go with, and nobody's dealing with that. But everybody is still trying to deal with the physical illusions. And the physical illusion is death. What you know of as life on this planet is actually death. And what you know of that you are calling dead is actually life. So the people on the other side are saying, we're the ones that's living, you're the one that's dead because you're not using 1/10 of your damn brain power. So therefore, there's a whole other realm. It's almost as to say that we're asleep and we're still trying to transform this physical by trying to transform the physical by doing physical and social and political and economical and mundane things. Whereas you transform the physical by going into the room, going into your mind and going into another room. And when you go into another room, what you think is the physical is the illusion, and that disappears. That's called Maya in India.
Let me see if I can sum up and
get
back to these temples.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be a good student.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's how we get.
I can do this is to go over.
Yeah. Right.
I wanted the temples. We were talking about the purpose of these temples. We had established that these were temples were actually learning centers.
Exactly. Transformation.
Transforming one from their lower or their physical into the spiritual plane. Now I want you to do two things. I want you to tell me what were some of the things that one would actually be able to do. We've alluded to them. We've alluded to one priest who had spent 40 years, who had matriculated, graduated, was a high spiritual being. Who could actually cause it to rain. I mean, I want you to talk about some of the things, even though it may seem impossible to us, what one would be able to do as a priest in Egypt. And also explain to us, one who was on that higher level, you've already alluded to it, that it's cyclical, and it was time for us in terms of the cycles of nature to go to sleep, so to speak. But do two things. Kind of allude to what, so we can get a picture of what we were in terms of how we lived within nature, what we were able to do. The process then of that stepping down, of that falling.
Falling.
And allowing then a lower entity to come in. Because this is the question that all young people ask. They say, damn it, if we once ruled the world, if we were the black men that we say we are, how do we let this white man we call a devil, this little imp, how do we let him rule us? That's the question. And until they can understand that, they can't make the next step to transformation.
First of all, the missing link is because when most Afrocentric scholars start off, they start with Egypt. Egypt is the way station. That's like starting American history and starting off with starting American history, and you say this is the introduction to American history, and you start off with the 1960s. You see what I'm saying? You got over damn near 200 years that you have taken out. Well, starting off with Egypt is actually like starting off and leaving out almost 1 million years or more of development. But it's real key with Egypt, because Egypt is the documentation on the earth of that 1 million years of the development. But most of the people who start off, they thinking that it's just 2,000 to 3,000 years old. This stuff goes back further than that. They are dating the temples, but the temples in actuality where the actual physical structures may be 2,000 or 3,000 years old, or a little bit older. But the actual inscriptions and the hieroglyphic inscriptions on the temples go all the way back to Atlantis and Lemuria. We just showed that because we now got the carbon dated stuff from the South Pacific that's got Anpu, and that's an Egyptian god. So now, first of all, we need to know what were we before we got into this stage.
Yes.
At that particular time, we had complete contact with the gods. You had what is called detailed files that you go back and look at these movies. Anytime you see these science fiction movies, it's science fact. Everything that you see, Superman, Batman, or you see the Predator, you see the Predator, you see the Terminator doing, that's what we could do. We had what is called detailed files, which is called cosmic memory. So all the child had to do was to remember the cosmic memory. He had a library in his head. Not only did he have a library of knowledge in his head, he had the ability based on the black dot, which is the same stuff that is in the cosmos, to whatever he thought in his mind, he could make a reality, both in the physical and the spiritual. All what you see on the spiritual level is an idea. That you take a thought and you slow the vibrations down low enough, they'll come into physical matter. That's why the Holy Kabbalion, which is a part of the Tehudian literature, say the first law of nature is not self-preservation. That's a primitive man shit. The white man had to preserve himself for the simple fact he ain't got long here. He's on a linear perspective. We are secular people. You see what I'm saying? So, the first law of nature is the law of vibration. Everything in the universe vibrates, and what you see in the physical is slowed down vibrations. Now, based on our spiritual centers that is up, we could think a thought, and we could manifest that thought. You see what I'm saying? And we can manifest that thought. So that means, when we're talking about what, you say, what certain things we do, even when I explain the certain things that we can do, in actuality, I'm explaining limited things, because if you got full use of your mind, and the universe exists in the mind of God. And since is it not written in your law that ye are gods, John chapter 10, verse 34 to 36, then that also means in actuality the universe exists in the mind of man. That's the black dot, the universe be. So, if the universe exists in the mind of man, then what we were saying, anything that you see they talk about in comic books or on science fiction and fantasy movies and different things that you call supernatural, superficial, you used to could do with just thought. So now what happened is, this earth fell into a lower density sphere, and the vibratory rate slowly went down to its lowest point. And based on the lowering of the vibratory rate, the deeper we fell into degeneration. So therefore, you couldn't do the same thing that you used to could do a couple of thousand years ago, or a couple of million years ago. So therefore, the Egyptian temples used to come in, and that's why the temples was made in to bring the priest back up to the level on where he could use all of his brain and tap into the particular science of what he used to could do when he was the gods of Atlantis. So at one time, you used to have detailed learning, detailed files in here, the Akashic records and cosmic memory, and also cosmic ability to do what you want to do, whereas you didn't need so much of the physical because it was all inside of you. If you want to go to other planets, you could do that. If you can live up under the water, you can live up under the earth, you can do anything, you didn't have to eat, you could have sex on the astral planes, anything you wanted to think of in your mind, you used to could do that. And that's what we're going back to now.
Now, what governed that in terms of, I know the Egyptians had the 42 negative
confession, right.
But what moral or spiritual or prime law kept one from actually using that in an extremely destructive manner?
Okay, let me explain that. You had a question?
I was going to point out and say, why did that happen based on, we felt so amazing that we could be supreme.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah. I'm going to get into that. That's exactly.
Have you changed the tape downstairs? I don't want to miss this.
Keep going. Okay, now look. You saying what spiritual laws you had. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad makes a point that you were righteous by nature. And what does that mean? You don't have, the animal out here that you call inferior don't have to have no moral code on the way he goes about life. It just is. You understand what I'm saying? The dog don't have to read no Bible. You don't have to have that type stuff. It just is. The Twa people, case in point, Twa people, the Dogon, some parts of the Dravidians, your people in the South Pacific, your people in the rainforest down in South America, indigenous people, they don't need no moral code of certain things to make them have a good moral behavior throughout life. They are one with nature, and it just is. You see what I'm saying? If something is innate, see, when we talk about righteousness, there's got to be a paradigm of righteousness in the get-go. Well, where did this paradigm of righteousness come from? Did it come from God? Yes. But is it not written in your law that ye are gods? Yes. Well, most of the stuff that you see that's the paradigm of righteousness was actually a carbon copy on how we behave. So what you call in righteousness when you talk about mythology or your moral scriptures is nothing but a carbon copy of what you used to do. And what humans have done, humans can do. See what I'm saying? So it's a form of the nature. That's why when I read this heretical prior to the British Museum that's talking about the white man, they say he has a restless nature. And as a result of us falling so low, we now have a program and a trained behavior. And that's not our rightful nature. There's certain things right now in our lowest state that black people do. They're still righteous that the white man copies as the model of humanity or the model of moral authority in this country. Black people, even in their dead state, is the moral of humanity in this country. If the white man want to legitimize something in this country, the first thing he does is he want to legitimize something that's wrong. He go and get a white black person to be in it, so therefore he can legitimize it. Because he knows he is the apex and the epitome of what is not. You see. So some of the things was just our nature. Now let me get into one other part. We're going to get into two parts on why we had to fall and how else what happened when we fell. When we fell, the chakra centers, the pineal area, the black dot, and all of the crown chakra and the spiritual wheels of light in us closed down. Because the earth steadily fell deeper and deeper into the third dimension, which is the lowest form of the physical. And the physical trapped all of the spiritual stuff, and that stuff stopped operating. So what we used to use as cosmic memory, we had to go to a mathematical equation to think up cosmic memory. That's where geometry, astronomy, astrology, trigonometry, reading, writing, and the 7 liberal arts came into being to mathematically equate what we had gotten rid of that was natural nature, the cosmic stuff. You understand what I'm saying? Now, why did all this is where your mystery system came in, to learn the basic 7 liberal arts, and then to go into spiritual attainment to get the priests back to that level. And then they understood that they couldn't, all the people in the world couldn't go to that Christ level, so the priests ran the society and made sure that the moral structure that they put in the scriptures is what the masses of the people would behave like. And that's where you have moral code come in. It came in as a remembrance of what you used to do when you were gods. Because the moral code is to follow up to be one like God. I want to be like Jesus. I want to be like the Lord. Well, who is the Lord? The Lord is what you used to be like before this thing fell. That's where moral structures came in. So we're talking about a level of degeneration when you say, where's the moral code? You understand? Now, what happened? Based on a war in heaven, they had to, in order to redeem and to save a certain part of the universe, they had to, what they had to do is they had to take a planet and bring it down so low until it would go through actual literal hell. Now, why? Why is this? Well, why? Why do we have to go through hell? You understand that there's a part of the universe that is so high and so righteous until it did not know the lowest depths of evil that there was. So in order For it to go any higher than what it is, the cosmos, the heavens, it has to go to the lowest